So for many of you, this will be the first time you've heard of the Canol Road. By the end, you'll have a little bit of history and you realize how important and how mysterious and amazing this place is. I'll start with the job description that was given out by Betchell, Price and Callahan in 1942 when they were looking for people to build this road. Now keep in mind that this is the soft cell, so it was probably worse than this. This is no picnic. Working and living conditions on this job are as difficult as those encountered on any construction job ever done in the United States or foreign territory. Men hired for this job will be required to work and live under the most extreme conditions imaginable. Temperatures will vary from 90 above zero to 70 below zero. Men will have to fight swamps, rivers, ice and cold. Mosquitoes, flies, gnats will not only be annoying but will actually cause you bodily harm. If you are not prepared to work under these or similar conditions, do not apply. Keeping in mind that that's the soft cell. And this was the soft cell being given to the engineers, the Army engineers, and the road builders that have been building the Alaskan Highway over the last couple of years, not the muffin-like adventure riders that you're journeying along with. Now, there isn't a lot of information about this road because, quite honestly, it was only used for about 18 months, despite the fact that it was an enormous undertaking. But they closed it down in 1945 for a reason we'll discuss in a minute. But the general feelings about it and whether it was a success or failure could be summed up by the Undersecretary of War for the United States, Robert P. Peterson, in 1945, saying, "I suppose that we must now bow to the verdict that the project was useless and a waste of public funds." But honestly, that's kind of like a siren's call for me. I get to boast waste funds, do something useless, and go to the north. So honestly, it was what drew me into this area. Now, I'm going to make an obscure reference here to my good old buddy Vizzini from The Princess Bride, but this is once again one of the classic blunders. Never get involved in a land war in Asia, and never think that you can control the north and build roadways through it. Seriously, look at a map and see how many times we've successfully done that. And then you take the people that have taken that roadway and you set them on this, and even they wanted no business to do with this after the road was completed. So as my final criticism of this project and how silly it really was, I will quote a unnamed critic from the time in 1945 who calls this, and I will sanitize it so it's a little more respectful, a junkyard moment to stupidity, which honestly it's a little bit hard to argue with. This whole area has been turned into a little bit of a memorialization of the time period and for how difficult life and travel and exploration is in the north. Very shortly here you'll start to see some relics that lay alongside the road. Now we'll talk a little bit more about it later on when we get to the actual heritage site, but there's two places along the road on the Yukon side that have these vehicle dumps where, like, again, as a testament to how difficult this place is, when they finished, they just left stuff, all the equipment, all the trucks. It was immensely hard to get it out. These red cones here bring up the second danger. You can see a little bit on the right-hand side there as it washes out, and here again on the right-hand side. There were some places that were marked along this road, some places that were not. Now, we drove it in bad weather. We did get some sunshine, as you'll see here, but it was really truncated by that we did a lot of this in the rain. But the road, it is being used for a little bit of mining exploration at the Nictung mine, and I believe that there might be a cobalt mine up in there as well, but I'm not sure. The roadway had these weird washouts, some that are more the classics, like the road just pushes through, but they also had these cavern-like holes in it where there was, somewhere around a foot wide hole at the top, which would be a little abrupt on a bike, but when you look down into them, they would go down, 2 or 3 or 4 feet, and they would open up like a cauldron, and I have no idea. Well, actually, I do have a little bit of an idea of what causes them. We had the same problem on glaciers, is where ice would form underneath and then hollow out as it melted, so it would leave these small holes at the top that you could hit across and honestly fall down quite a ways because the hole underneath was quite a bit thicker. It's cool seeing these. I think were the only 2 vehicles that we saw that weren't related to the mine. We did see 2 convoys going in at about half a mile an hour up this road to the mines, but from what I understand, it is a fairly I wouldn't say well-known, but it's a well-adventured place for kind of the gnarlier side of off-roading and overlanding. Here we are coming to the second historic mine site with these car dumps, or car stations. I don't want to call them dumps because honestly it's absolutely beautiful. All these 1940 vehicles that have been left primarily intact. We're going to take a little bit of a walk around here so you can get a better look, but it's just unbelievably cool to see this. There's a sign in the background there explaining the historic significance and kind of how they arrived here and why they weren't pulled out in the end. But all of these vehicles are now left in situ, so you can kind of climb around them. Obviously, you want to be respectful and not poke around. Absolutely no taking away of parts, but like, these things have been here for the last 70 years, and that is just amazing. Obviously, it's immensely dry in this area, so, you know, it gets a nice coat of patina, and then it kind of just sits there. Now, the entire Canol Highway itself is about 850 kilometers, ranging all the way from Tesland at the Alaskan Highway to Norman Wells. But it's broken into two sections that you can traverse by vehicle, whether it's by motorcycle or by car. The Canol South connects Tesland on the Alaskan Highway to Ross River on the Campbell Highway. Campbell Highway is very long. I think it's roughly 500 kilometers between Watson Lake and Carmacks in the Yukon Territory, and it is extremely remote. From there, you get to Ross River, 300 kilometers from Watson Lake, and then you head north, even more remote from remote. The section that we rode is approximately 230 kilometers long. At that 230 kilometer mark, you will come across a river, which isn't that big, but it is quite deep, and you will need to fjord from that point forward. The Northwest Territories does not maintain their side of it, mostly because you can't actually get to Norman Wells anyway. You'd have to cross the Mackenzie River or have somebody meet you there and boat you across. But that being said, I need to throw in a caveat about the danger of this road. Now, from a riding condition, with the exception of those cauldron-like deficiencies in the road that can swallow your bike, there is some danger in that it is pretty bumpy, like dual sport level of bumpy. I don't know, some adventure bikes I'd be okay with, like an 1190 or a GS or something like that, but bikes like a V-Strom or a Versys or something like that probably would be on the gnarly end for those bikes, mostly because of the ground clearance. You do hit a lot of rocks. But you do need to be very aware of the fact that you are in the genuine north here. Keep in mind from earlier in the videos is that people that built the Alaskan Highway and literally spit in every can and every corner, they thought this was gnarly and needed to get out of Dodge when they were done. So absolutely, if you're going to this area, which I super recommend because it is gorgeous, take somebody that knows how to operate in the north. I've spent a huge amount of time up in the north. I am not an expert by any measure, but I am pretty experienced, and you have to know certain things and you have to behave in certain ways when you're this far north, not only from the animals, but from the weather, the terrain. You just be cautious. I do recommend coming here. Be adventurous, be spontaneous, but be a little responsible too. And I can't believe I'm saying that out loud, but please, take this one with a grain of salt. And just because I know somebody's going to comment to it, I'm not saying a V-Strom or a Versys or whatever is not a good adventure bike. You're perfectly welcome to go down this road if you wish. I'm simply saying that you might want to have a spare exhaust, oil filter, things like that. It is bumpy, and you will get beat up in a way that the Dempster really... at this point, the Dempster is a little bit of a super highway, although gorgeous. Comparative to this, you can run across stuff that you simply don't expect here. It is very common for roads like this to be entirely washed out, to be frost heaved in ways that you've never seen before with massive cobblestones. So just be respectful in this area, be prepared. You can get through. You could probably get through with a street bike on the best of days, but I certainly wouldn't recommend it. Now, what's interesting in the area that we're kind of coming into here is that we are at the north side, or the north end of the Continental Divide, and we're also up quite a ways. This area is called the McMillan Pass. It's where most of the mine sites are, and I'm going to throw in an in-video correction because it's midnight and it's a school night, and I don't want to go back and re-record. There is no cobalt in this area, but there is nickel, silver, and lead, which is... the reason why this road has remained open after they kind of stopped using the pipeline in the 60s entirely. The road was maintained until 45, but the pipeline was used a small amount until the 60s. Here we are crossing into the Northwest Territories. From this point, 16 kilometers to the river, but you are in this high pass, which is also kind of, this is taiga area, which is transition between Arctic and the Boreal Forest. I love the taiga. I've spent a fair amount of time in it, and it's one of my favorite areas. For whatever reason, I'm drawn to places that have an uncomfortable balance with life. I think it's just you get to see kind of the best and the worst of how things survive, and it's just beautiful to me how the balance is achieved in such a hostile environment. We got in here. It ended up being about 20 to 30 kilometers longer than I had planned out on the map. I don't know why I didn't get the navigation quite right, but we were literally down to we were probably about 10 kilometers past my point of no return, my PNR, where we couldn't make it back out on gas. But I knew that we were getting really, really close. So breaking one of the cardinal rivers or cardinal rules of the north is I kept going because I knew that we were really close, and that is a good way to end up sitting on the side of the road waiting for a few days for fuel. This is the river that is surprisingly deep. It is not very wide, but if I had to estimate, I don't know if you can see it in the video, I would say it's probably 5 feet deep in the middle, so you would have to fjord it. I don't know if it goes down any lower on its own, but not that we could have gone any further anyway, because we were definitely on bingo fuel on the way coming back. I'm not going to state how much we have left on our fuel tanks when we got to Ross River, but not a lot is the summary version of that. And with that, I have to bring up something that had changed a lot since the last time I was in the north on motorcycle. Is I hadn't noticed that they transitioned away from having premium everywhere. When I was up here last time in 2011 or 2012 by motorcycle, there was premium everywhere to the point where you actually usually didn't find regular gas. But now, and I'm assuming it's because of the ethanol content that's been added to the premium, where it's no longer stable, so there's no advantage really to having it, is you pretty much can't get premium anywhere, which became a kind of a recurring theme on our trip, especially with James's bike that requires premium. We ended up having to run a lot of regular. In Ross River, there's no premium. There was honestly probably less than 3 or 4 stations outside of Whitehorse, and possibly Dawson in the north where we were able to get premium. So I'll also be prepared for that while you're on the go, because again, you're in super remote territory, so you might be comfortable, running a unrecommended grade of fuel when you're close to home. I can't even imagine what the tow truck ride would be here. I know in the Dempster, I think there's I thought it was a $250 dispatch fee and some like $16 a kilometer to come get you, and I don't even know the number. And you could ask the guy, but he would probably just be giggling to himself for how much money he's going to make coming and getting your sorry bike out of there for having an engine blown up accidentally. Because it'll always happen in a place like this. It won't be on the road next to a major city. And before anybody corrects me, because I know the internet brings out everybody wanting to correct everything, I am a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer, and I am fully aware that you can likely get away with running 87 gas in a premium bike, but I can also, from having done some transoceanic flights in aircrafts, tell you that when you're in remote places, weird things happen, and you're definitely going to hear it pinging the entire trip and wondering to yourself if that was really a great choice, which is one of the lessons you learn about the North, is don't test things, because it absolutely wins every time. So as we get to the end of this video, I hope it's been informational for you. It kind of yo-yoed all over the place, from funny story to history or whatever. But this was an amazing place. I honestly didn't know about it until fairly recently, but did a little bit of research and figured we could make a go for it. Kind of both being a little more experienced riders and having some bikes that were well suited for it. But it was just stunning. I mean, look at this. Can you really ask for anything more on a dual sport trip? This is the embodiment of adventure in the North American ride. And we're so fortunate to have access to this. So as we close out, I believe the next video will probably be the Dempster. I might do a Dawson one, but for sure the Dempster will be in the next little while. I'll try and put a video out about every 2 weeks, but hope you're enjoying these. I'm enjoying making them, and it's been some great memories for me and my son. This last picture here we have is our campsite at Dragon Lake. This was we did end up overnighting on the road simply because it was too long to do in a single day, but just gorgeous place.